Let's start. Uh,
Okay.
okay, so hi guys, this is our session on Golang from zero to hero, and in this session we have our guest Omid. So Omid, can you please tell me something about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Vivek. I'm Omid Hojabri. I'm a senior backend developer. I have more than 15 years experience. I experienced a lot of languages, and now I just focused on Golang.
Okay. So now you are focusing on Golang. So uh, the first session will be conducted by me on server-side programming with Go, which will be about 15 to 20 minute session. Then Omid will join us to our next session. So let's start our first session. Uh,
Excuse me, Vivek.
yeah,
Uh, we don't see your screen now.
I am very sorry. Uh, you can see the screen now?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. So let's start. Uh, Hi guys, this is my session on server-side programming with Jin. Jin is a Golang framework used for server-side programming. So what is Jin? Jin is a web framework written in Golang. If you need performance and good productivity, you will love Jin because Jin is easy to use and is productive. So first of all, we will see how we can install Jin. So first of all, we need to get the module from GitHub. Then we need to import it within our Golang program. After that, uh, we need to write our first server. So first of all, we need to add the cat command. Cat will create the file in Linux, and then we need to import our package, create a package, import our Gin module, and then we need to create a main function. Main function is the main function in Golang which will execute directly. So we also need to call the default method of Gin because in Gin we already have default middlewares. Okay, so default method will say that we are using default middlewares like log middlewares and different types of middleware. Then we create a get API ping in which we are returning the response message form, and then we added a run r.run. R.run means we are running the server, and if we didn't assign any port to it, it will be listening on 808 port. Then after that, we need to run example.go. Then we run when we run example.go, it then our server will listen on localhost 808/ping. So this is our first server. Now, Chin also support API methods. Uh, as you know, there are different API methods within a web framework, server-side framework. So we also need a different method like get, post, put, delete, patch, head options. So Jin also support that. So first of all, we need to get the default of Jin, and then we can add that different types of methods within our Jin. Like see, we have added the get method. After that, we added put, post, delete, update, and patch method, and then we are running the Jin server. If you want to run Jin server to your port, to any port, you need to enter it as 3000. Like if you want to run it on 4000, you need to tell Jinjet run this on 3000 port. By default, it is 808 port. Query string. A query string is something when we need to pass something to the route, to our route. Suppose we have this get route, welcome route, and we need to pass something to it as a query. There are two types of things in web programming is a query and param. So if you want to pass it as a query, so it will act as this: welcome, first name, last name. You are passing first name and last name. So you can get that by using a default query or query method. Default query will act if you didn't enter first name, it will get guessed. because we said that first name, if first name is not inserted by user, you need to get guest, and then it gets the last name from query, and then it return out to the user hello, first name and last name, and then we are listening it on a port 8080. So this is how query string works in gin framework. We also have multi-part. We can also send multi-part encoded data to our form. See this example. We have a post API, and we are sending messages from our front-end form to the backend of Go, and we are returning that response to the JSON with 200 status. 200 is okay status, so we are sending it to the user. We can also group our routes. Suppose in JavaScript Express.js framework, we use middleware for that, but in Gin we already have a method of grouping which is known as group method. In group method, we already added version 1 APIs, and we have added 3 APIs of post. After that, in our version 2 APIs, we added 3 APIs of post, login, submit, read. So this will act as a localhost 808 version 1 login and localhost 808 version 2 login. So these are this is how we can group our APIs. After that, we also can add manual middleware. So what is a manual middleware? As you already have seen that we added a default method. A default method is something it already have few middlewares. For example, logging or uh, error catching middleware. But what if you want to add your own middleware within Gin? So you need to call this method gin.new. This method said that we are adding new middleware. We are not using any default middleware. And what if you want to serve static content? I am from JavaScript background, Node.js background. I use Express.js for that. In that we serve static files, HTML templates, and send it to the user when server and front end is deployed at the same time. So how you can do that? So this is very simple. We already have a static method in which we can pass those files. Like as you can see, I am passing assets to the static method, so it will get all the assets. Then we can, if what if we want to serve just a static file, not a whole folder, so we can use static file method where we can serve that file. And what about HTML rendering? uh, when we write a server, we need to render something to the user. So there are two ways: cross origin and same origin. So most people choose same origin for mini projects, but cross origin is a good practice, but mostly people use same origin thing. So how you can do that? So first of all, you need to create a get route. A get route, first of all, you need to load that HTML templates. After that, you need to create a get route. Get route will get those HTML and serve it to the user. So here is the example of HTML template in which I am rendering a title, which I have sent to the user. Here you can see I am sending title main website to HTML template and rendering it within H1 tag. That's how you can render HTML. What about redirect? What if you have created a route and you want to redirect it to the other route within your Golang project or outside of your Golang project? We can do both internal and external routing. So as you can see in this example, I have created a test route where I am rendering it to Google, to Google's main page, but we can also render it internally. Suppose if you have route of home where you are getting the HTML template of home. So suppose you have created another route, a test route, and you want to redirect it to the home. So you can simply do that by redirect method. Testing. This is our last thing. Testing is very important. So how we can do testing? Suppose you have created a Go file, a Go server. So how you can test it? So here is a basic example of testing. You need to import a few module like assert module, testing module, and HTTP net, which is a default Golang HTTP server module, and HTTP.net, HTTP test module. These are the few modules which you need to import. After that, you need to create or set up routes. As you can see in this example, I have set up the uh, test and added the asserts. As you can see, it's asserts dot equal 200, and I am sending that code to the main program. And as you can see, I have added pong, just a string, and I am testing it to the main Golang program. That's how you can do testing. So if you want to learn more about Golang, don't forget to look into my course. I am currently working on course which is for absolute beginners, and don't forget to subscribe my YouTube channel. Thank you. Hi Omid, can you please present your screen?
Yeah,
Can you please start?
yeah.
ये 13 मिनट में ही।
Okay, can you see me?
Yeah,
Can
I
you
can.
see my screen?
Yeah, I can see you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you see my screen?
yeah. I can see you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Vivek, for your good and helpful. Okay, today we are going to learn about creating modern web services using gRPC plus protocol buffers in Golang. This is very interesting topic. So let's go to learn it. Okay, you know that today the most popular API is REST. I mean API in web services. REST is based on HTTP 1.1 and data is based on JSON. URL format in REST web services is based on a standard HTTP command like get, post, put, delete, and other typical HTTP commands. You know that URL format is like this: /API /v1 /user /231 /roles /453. There are some concerns about APIs. What are these concerns? The first one is data size. Data size is very important when you want to communicate and transfer some big data between two web services. So data size here is very important. Another concern about API is latency. Latency is another important concern about APIs. Other concerns are scalability, load balancing, communication between languages, authentication, monitoring, and logging. What is an API? API is a contract which client sends request and server sends back its response. So it's a basic format of an API. What is gRPC? gRPC is a free and open source framework developed by Google. So a big company like Google uses gRPC. Why don't you? It allows to simply define request and response messages for RPC. RPC is abbreviation form of remote procedure calls. gRPC is modern, fast, and efficient because it's based on HTTP2, which is the newest version of HTTP. It supports streaming. What do I mean? So, when client sends a request to the server can send back a lot of messages in response of client request. gRPC also supports client streaming. gRPC also supports many languages from C, C++, Java, Go, Python, PHP, and other languages. Authentication, monitoring, load balancing, and logging are easy to define with gRPC. Many companies like Google, Netflix, Square, CoreOS, Spotify, Docker, Cisco, and other big companies are using currently gRPC. What are official supported languages? C, C++, Java, Android Java, Go, C#, Kotlin, Node.js, Objective-C, PHP, Python, Ruby, and Dart. By the way, what is RPC? RPC is remote procedure call, which a client calls functions directly on the server. gRPC implements RPC very cleanly and it solves a lot of problems. Let's look at an overview of gRPC when it runs in a network. As you can see here, we have gRPC server and two other gRPC clients. gRPC server is written by C++, client is written by Ruby, and another client is written by Android Java client. So as you can see, these clients and servers can talk to each other very simply. gRPC uses protocol buffers or protobuf to communicate between client and servers. So let's see how it runs. gRPC needs to define messages and services using protocol buffers. And the interesting part is gRPC codes will be generated automatically with proto-C command. It's very easy and it can help you to just focus on your own business code. gRPC transfers its data in binary mode. So, in spite of plain text, which is in the REST web services, you can't easily read the data when you capture the network. You need just implement the methods defined based on your message type, which are already defined in protocol buffers file. Defining protocol buffers are in .proto files. As you can see, we can define our messages and service definition in .proto files. As you can see in this picture, I have already defined a sample message, sample greeting, sample greet request, and sample greet response messages in a single .proto file. What types of API gRPC supports? The first one is unary. The second one is server streaming. The third one is client streaming. And the fourth one is bidirectional streaming. Here you can see the unary API model, which client sends the request and server sends back its response. The other format of API supported in gRPC is server streaming. In server streaming API, client sends a request to the server and server sends back many messages to the client. As you can see, message 1, message 2, message 3, and message N will be sent to the client. The other format is client streaming. In client streaming, client will send many messages to the server, and server just sends back its response to the client. The other format is bidirectional streaming. In bidirectional streaming API, client and server at the same time sends their messages to the other side. For example, here, as you can see here, client sends many messages to the server, and server sends back many messages to the client. Let's compare gRPC and REST. Data in gRPC is binary, smaller, and communication is faster than REST. According to some benchmark, gRPC is 25 more performant. On the other side, REST is text-based, bigger, and slower. gRPC is based on HTTP2, which has low latency. On the other hand, REST is based on HTTP 1.1, which has higher latency. As I mentioned earlier, gRPC supports unary, server streaming, client streaming, and bidirectional streaming. On the other hand, REST just supports request and response. In gRPC, we can have any custom commands because gRPC is based on RPC. But in REST, we just have CRUD commands like post, get, put, and delete, and other standard HTTP commands. In gRPC, we can generate our codes by protocol buffer compiler to any language. But in REST, we should write our code manual, or we can use OpenAPI or Swagger. As I said before, gRPC is based on RPC, but REST is based on HTTP words. How to install gRPC? These are prerequisites. First, you should install Go, and of course that you have already installed it. And second, you should install Protocol Buffer Compiler. The last version of Protocol Buffer Compiler is 3. Then you should install Go plugin for protocol into these steps. First, you should install Protocol Buffer. Protocol Buffer Compiler is a tool to generate codes for you. So when you have your .proto files, this code can generate codes in your language. You can install Protocol Buffer Compiler in Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. The next step is to install Go plugin for protocol buffers. First, you should install Protocol Buffer plugin for Go using the following command, and updating the path variable to include gopath/bin. To install Go gRPC module, you can go to github.com/grpc/grpc-go, and you will find this command to get Go gRPC module to your system. To configure your .proto file, first you should indicate your syntax, which is now proto 3. 3 is the last version of protocol buffer. And then you should specify your package. And to include this option, go_package equals to, for example here, greet/greet pb. Next, you should define your message types. For example, here we have a message named greeting, which has 2 fields, first name and last name. And another message is greet request, which has just 1 field of type greeting, which we have already defined in our file. And the third message is greet response, and it has just one field, which is result. The next step is to mention your service definition here. And for example, here we have 4 types of service, including unary, server streaming, client streaming, and bidirectional streaming. As you can see here, for each service, we have a request as an input and a response message as output. For server streaming and client streaming, we can specify by the keyword stream for the server side or the client side. And when you want a bidirectional service, you can specify a stream keyword both in input and output of the service. The syntax format of generating code in Proto-C command is somehow complicated, so when you write once, you can use it as many as you want in your other projects. This syntax will generate a file called greet.pb.co. Greet comes of the name of your .proto file name. Here I have included a snapshot of my sample code, which demonstrate how to write your server-side code. As you can see here, we have a main function. In the main function, we will define a new listener. Then we create our server with new server command of gRPC. And from the package greet_pb, which is automatically generated in the last step, we call register greeting service. The first parameter of this method is our new server, and the second is our server structure, which we have defined here. Then we can implement our methods of services, which we have already defined in our .proto file, and it was auto-generated in our proto.pb file. Here we implement greet function, and as you can see, greet function is implemented version of the greet function of the server interface. In this method, you can access your request data in the greet_pb.greetRequestMessage variable, and you should pass out your greet response to the client. Here you can see that we can access our request first name and last name, and then we create our response message to be sent to the client. And here in the client side, in the main function, we first dial our server IP and port with gRPC.dial command. Then we register our client with new greet service client command. Then we create our unary command to send to the server. We define our greet request message here. It's a structure which we have already defined in .proto file, and we can send it via greet command of the server. So if you want to check the full sample code, you can go to my GitHub repository. I have uploaded already the full source code, which contains 4 types of services: unary, server streaming, client streaming, and bidirectional streaming. So go to my GitHub repository, github.com/hojabri/grpc-pr. Thank you for your time. I know that this session doesn't cover all aspects of Go gRPC, but I'm sure that you can find more resources on the internet. And if you have any question, you can send me your question to my email or Skype or LinkedIn, and I will try to answer those questions as soon as possible. Bye-bye.